Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Taylor Cepeda, the director of PR and comms at the Medical Society of Virginia. I'm really excited to welcome our partner Peak today for our webinar, Beyond the AI Hype, a practical guide for practice leaders. Medical practice leaders are being flooded with AI promises and vendor pitches, all while trying to figure out whether they're keeping up or falling behind. Today's session cuts through the noise and offers a practical framework for understanding how AI is already impacting your practice, when to use chat-based AI versus embedded tools, and how to implement AI thoughtfully without creating chaos or compliance headaches. Please note that these things are changing every day, and the MSV is going to continue to work tirelessly to make sure we're putting out useful and accurate information. So keep up to date on our website and with our partners to see what else is out there. Today, we're so excited to join Jim Cusick, who leads growth at Peak and is a nationally recognized generative AI expert. Jim has delivered over 300 AI and technology enablement sessions and has advised more than 20 leadership teams across healthcare, life sciences, and professional services. His approach is grounded, practical, and designed for real-world decision makers. Throughout the webinar, please feel free to drop any questions in the chat, and we'll be sure to address them as time allows. And any questions that aren't answered, we will reach back out to you after the webinar. Jim, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. So again, want to thank Medical Society of Virginia for allowing me to present to you all today. Going through my background, which Taylor just went over, really it's about how do we use these tools effectively, safely, and how can we make confident decisions for ourselves, for our people, for our business, and then our patients as a whole. Peak Technology, if you're not familiar, is a phenomenal IT partner to medical practices and groups. They have an awesome client base. Our team has really supported multiple specialties. We have heavy expertise matched with long tenure, and that's why I joined the team. I was impressed by Chris Knotts, the owner of the business, and then the rest of the Peak team as a whole. Now, I want to make sure, and if you feel like for some reason you didn't come away with one of these, you should come away with all of these from the session today. Please reach out to me and I'll spend some time with you one-on-one. I want to make sure that we understand what and we'll see what the 4-pillar AI skill set is, but what skill set is needed for anyone to be successful navigating the AI noise, picking what is right for their company, and then being able to use these tools effectively. And as leaders, we need to know where in our group, where in our practice, we can deploy AI capability safely and make it that it's not, because a lot of times when it's deployed the wrong way, it actually becomes a hindrance and it makes people less efficient or makes people less effective at the work that they do. So we have to learn where to deploy it. And then even if you aren't using AI, you're still being impacted by it personally and professionally. And I want to look at, from a medical landscape, some scenarios where you are currently being impacted by AI and what to do about it or how to think about it. And for me, it's always about confidence and know-how. You have to be confident in your decision making, and that comes from having a good foundation and then building upon it. But you do also have to use the tools to have that experience. And then at Peak, we have not only an AI lab, which I'll talk about as far as our vetting process, but an overall how we recommend walking through and working through picking those right tools and vetting them that they make sense for your practice. So we'll go through that entire process and provide that to you as well. So I just want to start with the noise. Some people have AI fatigue already. Some people are like, I haven't even gotten into it and I'm not seeing the noise. But if you haven't heard of the MIT study, this famous MIT study, typically it's used as a stat to say, oh, we don't have to do with anything with AI. It doesn't work. It doesn't do what the promise is. We can kind of put it on the back burner. Or people are using it, 95% don't work, but ours do. And that's how vendors are positioning it. If you actually read the report, it's only talking about a really specific subset of commercial enterprise level AI implementations. It's not talking about third-party tools. It's not talking about using chat-based LLMs. It actually has a section in there about how impactful those are. It's looking at a company that's deciding to train an LLM on maybe their knowledge base, something specific about what they do, and then trying to build that application themselves and then deploying that in their enterprise and seeing that those specific approaches weren't working. So that stat, you've probably seen it, headline news, still being used today, a little bit misleading to what the current state of AI is. And then I also have a photo from I was lucky enough to go to the Athena Thrive Summit this year, and just walking through, someone who's an AI expert walking through that exhibit hall. And I wasn't presenting, I was there looking for partnerships and meeting with some clients. They had no idea that I was not a practice leader or a physician myself. So I was getting just bombarded every couple steps by somebody pitching the same tool that the person behind them was pitching. And even for me, it was hard to discern where do I go, what makes sense. We can't do it all. As you all know, it's incredibly time intensive. You're stretched thin to be able to dedicate the time needed to navigate this noise without a guide is pretty difficult. And I just wanted to recognize that before we jump into the rest of the presentation. Now, if we talk about skills, and I know some of these workflow tastes, that looks a little strange, but if you say someone has good taste in something, obviously they know what looks good, why it looks good. That goes the exact same for AI. It doesn't matter if I'm using a tool that I purchased, that a company built, purpose-built, use case specific. Maybe it's ambient listening on the clinical side. Maybe it's something on the RCM side that we've purchased and it's delivering results. We still need to know what good looks like so we can provide that feedback back to the vendor to improve our vendor relationship, improve our end goal. We need to be able to provide that feedback within our teams so we know that this AI output is actually getting there. We're not missing something. And then if we're using what I call chat AI, anything that's that blank canvas, you can just write anything you want. You can prompt it how you want to do it. You could generate images, text, video, audio, whatever you're doing. For an example, if I'm not a lawyer and I'm generating legal documents with AI, I don't know what a good legal document looks like. I can be convinced that it looks amazing and it's right on point, but I don't know that it pulled verbiage from a different state than the state that I should have it from. I don't know that there's redundancy in the contract or things that are conflicting. All of those different types of things, a practice seasoned lawyer would be able to go and discern and be able to provide that feedback. That's the taste I'm talking about. So to develop that skill, you're already doing that in your area, your area of expertise for how you're running your group. Everyone has a different flavor of that, but you do have to work on that. So you can look at that output, you can look at what we're getting and be able to then make decisions from there. Then we get into workflow. This is actually a very specific skill set, is the ability to take a workflow, whether there's 9 different possibilities as we go along to complete a task. When you hear like institutional knowledge, or we have, Susan on our team, she just knows how to get it done. She knows all the intricacies of that. Actually mapping out those workflows and knowing where to plug and play AI potentially or where not to, because you could deploy AI safely, but as I talked about it could actually make people less efficient or be a distraction to them. So cultivating that skill set, and we're going to talk further about that today. And then prompting. There's a lot of noise around prompting when it comes to, we're going to have all these prompt engineers and people aren't going to be employees. You're going to have a prompt engineer for your practice. That was kind of the early talk track. And then it got into, okay, AI can just prompt for you. It's natural language code. It's truly structured. We are creating directions that we can use to complete tasks when it comes to what we want to get out of the AI. And we need to document that in a prompt library. We need to have version control, even if it's a personal prompt library. So you're not scrambling and starting from scratch, because if you're doing prompting the wrong way, which is just opening it up and talking, you're never going to be able to benchmark and see if you're getting better. And the benchmarking comes from both not only the what you see from an output standpoint, it also happens when these models change, when they get updated, when they add new capability. You need to see, did my prompt change? If I use something to generate a patient notice, or I'm generating I don't know, for our Facebook page, Facebook business page, I'm generating some social media graphics. Like, has that changed? We've used it for strategic planning now, year after year, quarter after quarter, and I don't have that ability to benchmark against it. It's going to be random, and it's going to feel random. And then last, and this is probably the most important, specifically in healthcare, is being able to select the tools, because there's a lot we can do with chat-based LLMs in a safe manner. A lot of knowledge work, a lot of things that doesn't touch PHI, PII. We can do that in a nice, compliant way. But if we're talking about the clinical side, we're talking about from a compliance standpoint, we need to be able to go through, and that's the process we'll show at the end, how to essentially select these tools, know that the risks we are taking, or understanding the risks we're taking implementing these tools, but we're okay with it because we've done our due diligence. We understand the company that we're purchasing from. It matches with our overall risk standpoint and our compliance guidelines, and we can deploy it in an effective manner. So these four, if you can nail these four, you are going to have a lot of success and be a lot more confident with using generative AI. So the slide looks basic. LLMs, great. We got Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, and Copilot. I left LLMs off of here that you might have heard of. You might have heard of Grok, Llama by Meta. There's a lot of different options, or different ways you can access chatbots. These are really the four leaders, and Copilot is unique. And most practices are going to be in a Microsoft environment. Copilot's unique because they did an early deal with OpenAI, who's behind ChatGPT. That early deal, you thought Copilot was going to be worlds above. But if you're accessing Copilot through just the free version of Copilot, you're really getting a watered down version of ChatGPT from a chat standpoint. Gemini is interesting. That's Google's, because it has leapfrogged OpenAI and ChatGPT as far as the leading frontier model. Image generation is unbelievable. They have a lot of cool features. And then they also have the ability to have a BAA to leverage tools that are just like closed off and for your practice, and not something external. So it's definitely one to note there. And then ChatGPT and Claude. A lot of people that I talk to on the healthcare side haven't really experienced Claude or used it. Claude is very powerful. Its Opus 4.5 model is right now probably the best performing model. There's rumors that this could be artificial general intelligence. It's very good, but with ChatGPT and with Claude, there's compliance considerations, and just overall with the leaders of those companies and the directions. Just you gotta tread lightly with the use cases there, and we'll get into that obviously. But I just wanted to showcase that if it's outside of this, like an example would be Poe. Poe is one where you can access all the models through one chat interface. It's kind of like an aggregator. Very, very much a concern potentially, depending on how you use that. So just want to stick within these four. Now, when I say native AI, and you're going to be like, okay, I don't hear native AI a lot. What do you mean by that? I mean AI that it's not that blank sheet of paper. It lives in the tools I already use or have used or have considered using. It's purpose built. If you've ever used Netflix, Spotify, LinkedIn, any of that recommendation type predictive engine is AI. It's just natively built. You don't notice it's there. There's a spectrum of these tools that you notice the AI is there versus it's actually like you're interacting it more often. So I just kind of gave a range here of tools you might be familiar with. I didn't list all the EHRs. Athena, to me, not saying switch to Athena because of the AI native capability. They just have made the most investment so far when it comes to AI. There's a lot of reasons for that, but if you go on and we'll look at their LinkedIn employees page, they have the most machine learning engineers. They launched an AI native clinical encounter. They're really trying to push the envelope behind, from a C-level perspective, Paul Bryant, who's kind of setting that vision there. So it's a very interesting one to watch, because what you can do with native AI is you can see where the leaders are, and then you can see where your vendors will be, and you can talk to them about the roadmap. Is that going to be on the roadmap moving forward? Now, if we're deciding when to use chat AI, when to use native AI, if we're doing general purpose knowledge work, so like every practice, every group, we got people problems. We're working on communication, whether it's internally, when it's externally. We are handling a lot of data. We're handling a lot of vendor management. All of those things can potentially be, you can use chat AI as an assistant there to help you either do it faster, take that off your plate. What I like to do is, if you use partners to do, so what I like to recommend is, if you're using partners for whatever services, could be IT services, could be marketing services, whatever it is, you can evaluate them with AI. Now, the mistake people make, and when we get into examples, one of the examples is vendor management. The mistake people make is they think, oh, I'm going to outsource the decision-making process to AI. No, what AI does is it allows you to ask better questions. It allows you to compare and contrast based on the way you're interacting with it, so you can make a better decision, or you can go back and be like, you know what, why aren't we approaching it this way? And there might be a very valid reason, versus what people traditionally do. They just go into ChatGPT and they say, tell me why I'm paying X, and this is what I'm getting, and what should I be getting? And then they get a response and they just go back, see, I'm not getting enough. And it's just a reflection. This is all predictions. ChatGPT is just giving them a reflection back of what they put in. It's not helping them think deeper, think more critically, or think of something they weren't seeing. Now, on the native AI side, so most practices that we speak to are either, whether it's piloting with some physicians, or they've rolled it out, some sort of ambient scribing, clinical documentation. I do, and I have heard a lot of feedback around, is it really making that much of an impact? And the head of AMA was saying again at the Thrive Summit, he was saying that for him, the biggest impact, and this isn't measurable, of something like ambient scribing, is he's not looking at a patient sideways while typing and trying to get all the notes and missing. He's able to focus fully on the patient while he's having his notes done for him. Incredibly important, but that's not going to show up from like an efficiency of closing notes or something like that. These numbers that we're looking for, but that is going to show up in patient experience. That patient's going to leave feeling better. Like, that's effectiveness, and that's very important. And then obviously, very, very cool features and tools coming out on the RCM side, or that have already been deployed. And then patient scheduling and automation. One of the case studies we're going to look at today is around Assort Health and its impact from a scheduling standpoint. Now, when we're looking at foundational concepts, and this is going to be the first time we jump out of the presentation and get into actual demo. If you haven't heard of any of these words, it's okay. I'm about to go through the definition of all, but these are concepts that no matter what you're doing from an AI standpoint, you should understand that these exist and these capabilities are out there, or that the way you're interacting with these models changes because of some of these factors. So if we talk about memory, these systems don't necessarily have, they definitely, no matter what you want to debate, they definitely don't have a defined consciousness. And memory is interesting with how it comes across these systems. And there's a really cool company called MemZero that's working on essentially being the Plaid of financial services, how you can connect bank accounts and everything, that universal piece. They're working on being on that for memory for all of your AI tools. So you can take this with you, and you're not essentially educating whatever LLM or whatever tool you're working with on your unique I guess the unique attributes of your practice or group, or how you specifically like to work, or what trends you're seeing or adapting to, strategic planning, all of that stuff can fall under memory. Um, and we'll look at an exact example of that. But that's kind of what you think about when you're thinking about memory. You're thinking about, okay, this is a prompt before the prompt necessarily. Before I get my output, it's factoring that in, and that changes the probabilities of what I actually get from the systems. So it's an incredibly important piece of AI. Custom instructions is where you can tailor responses to you. So if you like it short and sweet, you want it to talk to you in a certain way, you want it to be very formal with how it responds, you can put that in there and that'll tweak those responses. Custom instructions also, typically, depending on the tool you're using, lives not only on the chat AI side, but also on the native AI side. And then from an application standpoint, so if you hear any GPT, gems, agents, artifacts, those types of things, they're all different words for basically apps. Like the Apple App Store, you can build GPTs in ChatGPT, and they're specific mini applications that are purpose built for whatever function you need. Very easy to build. They're not robust, but they're effective. Now, deep research. This is by far my favorite chat AI feature. I think everyone can benefit from deep research, even if it's just for personal use and you're using it for shopping. It's the ability to send AI out, generative AI out, and search the web for a specific reason, let it work on it, do different types of searches, go through different sources, and provide you back detailed research with cited sources on whatever question you asked it. And then you can continually ask it those questions. It is an agent-like experience because you can set it and then you can go work for 15 minutes and you get a little pop-up and you can go check it. And that deep research functionality lives across almost all of the frontier models. When we get into data training versus chat history, you'll hear a lot about, does AI train on our data? What does that mean? But what people forget about is all of their information they've left in their chat history is still static, sitting in their account. So if someone got access to their account, they would have access to every single chat they ever did because they didn't delete those. There are zero data retention plans, obviously keeping this general so it applies to everybody, but specific use case by use case, there's size limits and things there. And then we get into agents. One of the biggest buzzwords, 2025 was supposed to be the year of agents. It really wasn't. It was the year of agent, the agent term being marketed really well, but a lot of it was just automation with LLMs fitting into that. So if you were going to just do regular business process automation, if then that, to get something completed, now you could layer over AI, and essentially it can summarize things or put it in a different form to then improve your automation, and people were calling that agents. So we're in ChatGPT here. As we go to, and again, I understand because with ChatGPT, we hear compliance, there's issues, like nothing we're talking about here is PHI or PII. And it is important to know because most of these tools that you would experience on the native side are built off of these models. They're building off of Gemini, they're building off of Claude, or they're building off of one of the GPT models. So if I click up here, you have multiple model options. Auto is essentially allowing the ChatGPT itself to pick a model for you. But if we go down here, you can see there's been a ton of models released. So if I want to just let ChatGPT do it for me, I might be sacrificing some capability in some areas, but I don't have to think about it. You pick the model, go ahead. But if I'm doing any kind of analysis, any kind of strategic thinking, I want to look at multiple perspectives, I want to default to a different model. I don't want to let ChatGPT pick that for me. So there is a lot of people don't even realize they can pick different models, and it has a major impact on the results you get. Now, the first one on that list was memory. So when you talk about memory, you can have memory within a chat itself, or you could have memory within your entire account. I turn off memory, one, because I show a lot of examples, so it would get very confused. So if I was meeting with you about your practice, I would be talking to it about maybe a pediatric group, and then I might be talking about an orthopedic group that's in high growth mode, and it's very different experience there, or I might be talking about something for peak. It's kind of, or maybe a medical society, kind of all over the place. So I turn it off because I don't want to have it taking pieces of those conversations and thinking I want to talk a certain way. But most people are just working on just for their work, for their team, for their practice. So here I could say, please remember this information. It's able to remember this information no matter how long this chat gets. It can go back and refer it. So if we think about me typing this prompt, now when I type the next prompt, it's going and referring to this, which is changing how it's going to respond to me. So I just told it to remember these things about my practice. Obviously, it told me to go turn memory on so it can remember that forever. But it has that, and it can tailor those recommendations, workflows, and suggestions. Incredibly important because I don't have to keep repeating myself. Then I can say, based on what you know about our practice, suggest some operational improvements. If I was going, because this is an example, we'd give it more detail, and we're going to talk about prompting with our voice to be able to provide it more information. But then it gets into telling me what we should do based on the short front desk staff, our operational priorities, our current, where we get, where our patients currently use from a payer standpoint. All of that information is in here. And then just add another one. Now I'm telling it like, hey, I'm the managing partner of the practice. This is what I care about is physician burnout and financial stability. It's going to factor that in to everything else we're talking about. So I can have a chat, I can rename it as I rename this one, and I can have this chat and I can go back to it at any point. If I'm using native AI, I can go in, depending on the complexity. If I'm working with a forward deployed engineer who's helping customize my instance of whatever AI tool, I can have my memory and I can make sure that it knows all the intricacies about our practice. So when we're doing automated scheduling, it knows that you can't park across the street on whatever day because of X reason. It has those nuances, and that's memory, and it's incredibly important. When we're looking at, I'm just going to go up the line here. When we're looking at agent mode, all right. So when we're talking about our practices, we're thinking from a marketing standpoint, are we doing the right thing? Are we showing up the right way across the internet? I just put in general prompt. I just picked Fredericksburg Urology, just grabbed them from a Virginia-based medical group. And then I had it go and create a prompt around how patients would interact with the site. So if I turned on agent mode now, came in here, and I said, go deeper on our meta. It's going to refer to everything about us above, and then it's going to run this AI agent. And it'll pop up here shortly. When it does this, it's actually running a virtual computer to complete a task for me. So it's now searching across the internet around our presence. And now there's going to be a login here. So it's going to struggle to get past some logins. It's going to look at the publicly available data, but you can see it working here. This is completely auditable, and it's not getting any access to anything on my current machine, but I'm able to go have it run this and do this type of work for me. Agents, though, are incredibly, so I want to show the capability, but I want to talk about how incredibly risky they are from not only a compliance standpoint, but just from a being able to have confidence that something bad, because it could be a wide spectrum here, isn't going to happen. But we're going to see more and more agents. And for lean teams, you're going to want to leverage agents who can do, they're not replacing jobs, but they are replacing specific tasks or enhancing specific tasks. But a lot of things require credentials. You have single sign on and those things. So you have to make sure you're not providing any of these credentials from a cyber security standpoint. And again, when it comes to compliance, you don't want it gaining access to this data, and it can get wild. So if we're looking at agents, we really want to look at the native AI side and how do we leverage agents in a secure fashion, starting with what's in our environment, working with our IT partner to make sure this is safe, or our IT team on staff, that this is checking all the boxes. You don't want to go wild with agents, but you can see it's working hard. And I've been talking and I haven't had to do anything here, but you get these detailed reports on things that you can improve. So you can go make those changes, or you can take this to your marketing partner and have more success. That's really, really a key piece here. Now, when we're looking at custom instructions and defining custom instructions. So if I go into my settings here, under personalization, and I have customization again turned off for a certain reason, I can provide it both on the memory side, but really hear a lot about myself and tell it exactly the style, the tone, the approach that I want it to take, and get that back and have a lot of success and have it very much feel like, wow, this knows me. But then again, there's some caveats to that. You're injecting some bias in there. You're injecting some rigidity that might leave you to miss stuff. So when you're doing those custom instructions, this is where benchmarking, I'm going to talk about benchmarking a lot. This is where benchmarking and knowing like how this changed what you were doing before is important. But you would just come in here and you can change that in here. That all of the LLMs allow you to do some sort of personalization. All right. So we'll come back to ChatGPT in a second. And I want to go to the next slide. I'm going to come back to deep research. So some of these tips and tricks, as much as I talk about benchmarking, that's where version control comes in. You need to have this documented. Any type of prompting, once you've defined your policies, your procedures, any kind of documentation, incredibly important. If you do want to let it work for you and not use agents, they actually have automated tasks that you can schedule. One that I would do if I'm worried about algorithmic downcoding or just keeping up with my payers, I would probably have an automated task that every Monday it goes and searches to see if there's any new news, if there's any medical society information or any other, maybe I'm in MGMA, another physician group, whatever it is. If I'm in those groups and they have publicly available information, can I have it search and keep me up to date along with those payer websites, so I'm not missing out that they've changed a policy or a procedure, or something's changed with compliance. I can set that up so I just get a deep dive just sent to me, notification of my email. I can open up and see what it generated. I'm staying ahead without doing manual research. And then I can go through and talk to that. If you've ever used like Morning Brew, Healthcare Brew, any of these newsletters that you're subscribed to, you can create a personal newsletter within like a ChatGPT that sends exactly what you need from the publications or places that you want information from. You can do it every morning, every Monday. Very easy to do. Now, along with all the AI noise, AI was designed to be a mirror. It was also designed to be a sycophant. It was designed to tell you what you wanted to hear, so you use it more. It's a consumer app. When we're talking about these chat interfaces, there's a race to get as much data as possible. There's a race to get as much use as possible. So if you're not asking it, if you're putting in ideas and it's telling you you're really great, and you're not asking it to steel man or straw man the idea or take a critical approach to it, you're going to get biased there. And as a leader, that can be very problematic, especially if you're dealing with people and you're just running something by, hey, I'm having this issue, or we're having a hard time. We need to talk about something. Like, this is what I'm seeing. And you keep it vague and not personal just to get direction. If you're not coming back and then having it challenge you on those thoughts, you can get very much just repetitive and, oh, my way is the right way. And then using your work, which we'll look at, if you've already done the work in a lot of these areas, I'm just going to use, because it's easy and it's safe, the marketing example. If you've already been using, whether it's a company or yourself, to put a bunch of stuff on your Facebook page or maybe your LinkedIn around adding physicians to the practice, growing your group, flu shots, whatever it is, you can take that, put that into the LLM, put that screenshot in and say, turn this into a prompt that I can reuse. So next year, or if I need to create another notice, it can use our brand guidelines, it can use our structure, it can use what we've already done, and in seconds I can get that. And then less is more. Just feeding it a ton of information is not the best way to use AI. Think about it this way. If I have a large book, let's just use Harry Potter. I got the Harry Potter book, but I only care about one chapter and one specific thing. If I feed it the whole book and I ask it about Quidditch, I'm going to get times that they're talking about Quidditch in all different ways, not them playing Quidditch in this one specific chapter. If I just gave it that chapter, I'm going to get a lot better answer. That applies to everything. People think just feed it everything and let it figure it out. And no, you're messing with the outputs and the probabilities. And then voice mode, we have the ability to dictate, and it's so effective. So if I'm going to use, so we'll pop right in there to the dictation feature. If I'm going to write a prompt, I'm always going to dictate out that prompt. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, I want to create a patient notice that is friendly. We have an aging population in our practice that we support. It needs to be super easy to digest. It needs to be super easy to tell them where to go for help. All of that information. Can you generate a prompt that'll help me with these patient notices? I could have typed that out, or I can just click that and just like this, and it'll write me that prompt. Now, this is where the taste is you have to come back and make sure that the output is what you're looking for, and you have to read through this and make sure that this prompt makes a lot of sense. But you see how fast this would have taken me forever to write, but see how structured this is? Structure is incredibly important with these. Now, once I have that prompt, I can edit it with my voice, or I can make the whatever changes I need to make to move forward and be able to launch that in the right way. If I have examples of what we've used before, then I can put that in and say, how does that change this? And the first example I was going to give was actually patient notices. So this is a patient notice. I created it here, but in my kids' pediatric practice, we love our pediatrician. They just put up a sign. It's just a Word doc. Someone working fast just said, we invest in a patient portal, please use it. And it has their logo at the bottom. This is obviously not their logo. And it's just no color, just stuck to the wall. And they've had a really hard time with adoption of the patient portal. No one reads it. If they were to take that or come into here, with no effort, in seconds, they could have created this with no graphic design knowledge, with just their voice. And they could have said, zoom in. This, they could have had a QR code, and they can test the QR code that it works to the link to the patient portal. They could just drop in the patient portal link in here. And then this is so much more friendly and easier for that busy parent. Again, not that the practice is doing anything wrong. There's so many things going on, and to waste time to go do this. But if AI can just take this off your plate, why not? And then if we're doing, just to show you the example, if we're doing something for social media, again, this was all done with voice prompting. And then I can just take that and put that right on social media. You can add your logo. You can take this out. If you do have a Canva, put it in a Canva, put a block over it, add your logo, different things you can do there. Incredibly effective. And again, if you have your own examples, put them in. Now, if I go back to this, I need to version control this. I need to understand when we used it. I need to document that. Takes an extra step, but again, it's going to pay off in the future. Now, from a vendor comparison perspective, and I know I'm going fast, but I want to cover as much as possible for you. And there is a recording so you can refer back to it. And the way AI works, when I click on these, it puts you to the bottom so you can continue your chat when you switch through these. But for this one, and I used IT services as an example. So we're looking for an IT service quote. We want to compare these. Here's our practice, made up a practice in here, put in our size. And obviously you would have more detailed information, our current IT environment. And then I had some dummy examples of what the quotes were from various vendors. What that can do for me is it could give me this information, but it could put it in a side-by-side comparison table. So if I'm busy practice leader and I need to go now sit down with our physicians and we need to efficiently get through this, I can come with this side-by-side table and we can go through and see, does this match exactly what we need? What questions do we need to go back with? And you can really do a good job of getting more out of your vendors, but also building that relationship and having better, smarter questions so you know I'm choosing the right partner. You can be more confident in it. Again, it's about using it to help be that partner and speed you up, because you can't be an expert in everything. That's why you have vendors. That's why you have your job in vendor management is to kind of navigate this. It's an incredible use case of chat AI. Now, going back to the presentation side. So the patient encounter on the native AI side, and unfortunately, Athena has it hidden probably for good reason, that you can't see the patient encounter. There's no videos, they just talk about it. The patient encounter itself, you go here, you can see exactly what they talk about, how it has native ambient notes, how it has a chat-based assistant. So even though it's native AI, I still need to know how to chat and get the most out of it. Our clinicians are still going to need to know the right questions to ask, the right way to prompt it, even though they have suggested questions at the bottom. It's able to do all of this in one view. It's able to allow clinicians to close their notes faster. I can toggle back and forth. What makes this so impressive to me and native is I can toggle back and forth within this view of the traditional view to now the AI native view. And what that allows people to do is kind of get a feel for it and see, okay, it's working the way it should. It's helping me. But when they rolled this out, a bunch of questions came up. What's this going to do to my liability if it recommends the wrong thing? All of these questions are things to navigate, to work with a partner with, and to really understand how AI works, because you can't trust, there is no like blanket trust AI out there. There's always a potential for what you've probably heard, hallucinations, which is it makes something up just to fill in because it's running tokens and probabilities, or it pulls something from the wrong area and misinterprets. But there's also human error as well. So AI native patient encounter is an incredibly cool tool. And obviously all the EHRs are working on rolling that out. Now I talked about the machine learning staff and investment at Athena. Just as an example, you can see there's 10 pages of people at Athena Health that have machine learning on their profile. I want to say it's like over 800 engineers in that. They're making incredible investments. And if you go through ECW, NextGen, ModMed, you go through that, a lot of them have machine learning on staff. They might be contracting out, so you can't just make a judgment there, but that is a way, and you'll see these other LinkedIn tabs, a quick way, even if you're not active on LinkedIn, just to vet these AI tools. And it's part of the AI vetting process that we recommend. in ambient listening, most people are aware of. Is that a question in the chat? The ambient listening here, most people are familiar with that. That is a great native AI use case. All right, so external factors, back to our agenda. So automatic downcoding, it's not impacting everybody, but that is algorithmic. It is payers being able to use AI to impact the way you get paid. There's a lot you can do from both leveraging AI tools yourself, but also being ahead of it. So when I was talking about that specific use case of searching to seeing changes, notices, things that are people are talking about with payers, incredibly important. Part of the Carolina MGMA listserv, I'm constantly seeing questions around this automatic downcoding. And that's something where you can deploy AI to either help you be more knowledgeable, to help search and find these resources. Obviously, you still have that community piece. That's a great community there. You have your Medical Society of Virginia community. All of these communities can help you, but you can let AI help you faster with that research. And then if you do use it and you're able to find tools on the revenue cycle side and help with how AI is impacting your revenues, you might be able to have it increase your revenues to offset that. I like to look at it as punching above your weight there, because AI allows, as much as it's frustrating, AI really does allow you to do more with less, both from a time standpoint and a financial standpoint. Patient acquisition, this one you've probably heard of. It's the patients are going to be searching differently. They already search differently. How you currently rank, how you currently show up when it comes to AI. From an AI search, AI generative optimization, it has a lot to do with the same things you're already doing on the SEO side. So if you're doing a great job on reviews, you're very active in the community, you have PR is becoming more important than ever with how these LLMs stack rank credibility. But if you look at the search and you go in and you put your practice into a ChatGPT or just a Google, and now you get that Google overview, you're getting less, you're showing up, there's less there. So you're fighting for less real estate. And that's where it can get scary, or you're like, who moved my cheese? Like, you have to keep tabs on that and continually work to make sure that you're doing those right things. You're working with partners to stay ahead of that, because you don't want to show up in a different way. And that leads right into referral validation. So if you rely on a lot of referral marketing and referrals from others, say your ophthalmology, referrals from doctors, what you're seeing now is it's a difference in question. Like, I would never ask that question, or a patient would never ask this question to Google, because they wouldn't get the right answer. But they can ask this to an LLM and they might get something different. So this could move some of your referrals, not to scare you, but it's something to keep tabs on and be aware of. These aren't all, these are just 4 key ones I want to lock in on. And then ChatGPT Health, Claude Health came out as well. This is allowing the end user, patient, consumer to connect Junction, MyFitnessPal, their Garmin watch, their Apple Watch, their EHR, like all of this can now be connected, as ChatGPT says, securely to a chat experience. So not only have they already come with questions or biases or things to your clinicians, and it could add time to a visit. It could make them skeptical of what's being recommended, all of those things. They're going to be coming with all this now connected to all of the healthcare ecosystem, which is just going to cause potential more issues. So you have to keep tabs on that, on how that's rolled out, because there's hundreds of millions of questions being asked around health to ChatGPT currently. And that's why they rolled out this product and wanted to roll it out so quickly. All right. So when we get to looking at individual use in the practice and practice-wide use, on the medical side, you're not seeing as much of shadow AI use that you are in other. I know it's a big talking point. We do have to consider it. Shadow AI use, as you would see in other industries, because people understand the compliance ramifications. So it's just better not to use it. But there is a huge need in defining how you use it, defining what's acceptable, giving people foundational know-how and knowledge, and then putting in safeguards that are both technical and human. So blacklisting and then having an approved list, knowing that just like with cybersecurity, the human input and the human decision making and habits are going to be your biggest risk here. And that judgment of, is this PII? Is this PHI? Is this problematic? Should I be putting this in? Is this proprietary? All of those things. That's where understanding how this stuff works, you get the most benefit, but you're also doing the best to mitigate your risk. And then if you're rolling anything out practice wide, because you'll see variations between doctors on the clinical side of AI capability, you have to benchmark, because without that, we can't enable those who want to leverage AI and then support and convert those AI skeptics. AI skeptics are going to happen. You might be an AI skeptic. That's okay, because that's not a bad way to look at it, but you do have to know where to use it effectively. Because if you don't use it at all and everyone else is, it can create a huge disadvantage. So this is where I would turn to somebody who understands this, can help walk you through this, and then maybe foster, you'll hear like foster champions internally, pick those who, because again, we have lean teams, we're stretched thin, got other priorities, but who can we kind of prop up or say, hey, you're going to be the one spearheading this or testing this when we pilot, and they're kind of that go-to person. That'll help in the benchmarking piece. All right, so vendor evaluation. So we have, so this is right from our AI lab. We have a checklist basically to go down for how to evaluate these tools. If we go into our AI lab, you'll see not every tool is in here, but you can search by EHR, you can search by use case, and then you can come in here, you can read about our due diligence on the tools, and then you can see this rating here. So Bland AI, if we were going to evaluate it, so I'm going to go back to slides here, we want to look at, to me, everything starts with security and compliance. Are they checking the box there? To go to one of these websites, this is pre-vendor call, or someone reaches out to you and you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. Go right to the bottom and get into their trust and security, or how they process your data, or how they govern the model. I love how Bland has this laid out. A lot of them just have trust and security, or a data policy, or something like a one click here. They have detailed information here around exactly how they approach trust and safety. Still involve, especially your IT team, when it comes to something like this is big decision type stuff, but you can be assured that you're bringing something that, okay, we should be able to do our due diligence here. We can evaluate the effectiveness, the efficiency gains and things like that, but we know they're doing the right things from a security standpoint. We've done that for you on some tools, but I'm saying if you're starting from scratch and evaluating, that's how you want to go through it. The using LinkedIn, I can't stress enough how easy it is to see how new a company is, how where they're making investments, all of those things from LinkedIn. So if we go to Bland and I just clicked on their AI forward deployed engineer, this is a critical role with native AI. Like, you want companies with forward deployed engineers. Those are the people who are going to work with your practicing group to customize the solution that it works for you. So if we clicked into their profile, you can go in LinkedIn, you can see when he joined LinkedIn. So I know it's being recorded. You can just come down to about this profile. Is it verified? Because there's a lot of fake profiles out there. Some of these startup companies will just put fake profiles up so they look more robust, or like they have more knowledge on staff. And then I'm kind of looking at, okay, where did they, and this isn't going to tell you everything, but where did they work before this? Now, clinical research coordinator, clinical trials, and then straight into about a year as an AI forward deployed engineer. That matters because if I'm working to create a very custom solution, and Bland, if we go back and went through all of the scorecard here, you'll see that's not a healthcare specific, specifically medical group and practice specific solution. Doesn't mean you can't use this, but I'd probably start elsewhere. And then they have those who are newer. He could be awesome. I have no idea, but newer on staff, or they're making a bunch of new hires because they're growing quickly. You could quickly get yourself into a thing where we can't customize this. It's not really designed for medical practices, and it's not going to be as effective. And you can do that very quickly by just doing a quick search in LinkedIn without being a LinkedIn expert or having the ability to navigate quickly. You just put the company in the search bar, and then you go in there and add your keywords, or you just hit enter. People, current companies, Bland, and then machine learning. It's already there. Oop. And it's already there. Now I can go through the team members there. And this is even in the free version of LinkedIn. If I am unsure navigating this, I am leaning on my existing vendors. It's my IT provider, that's my EHR provider. I'm seeing if they have a partner portal, and I'm seeing how they can help me navigate this quicker. And then I'm using AI, as we talked about with vendor management, to develop better questions. And then I'm using AI to benchmark these pilots so we know exactly how it's performing. So I'm going through these checklists. I'm providing this to our entire team and saying, like, this is how we need to go about evaluating these tools. And then if you're trying to figure out, most of the time you feel this like inbound pressure or like cold calls or emails, or you're at an event and you're like, oh, that looks neat. You have to come back to defining kind of like first principle thinking, your problems, those ideal outcomes, what we actually need from it, and then get into piloting. And then again, back to benchmarking. And then from a compliance standpoint, it's the same things. You're looking for those standards. You're looking for getting a BAA in place. You're looking for HIPAA compliance, SOC 2. You want to see that, as we saw on that Bland page. That's really the way you differentiate, and that's the way you're able to decide, okay, these are the ones I'm going to spend my time. Now, last thing from because I know we're almost at time, from a case study perspective, when this is done correctly. So I mentioned Assort Health. So if you go through Assort, if you go on their website, orthopedic, specialty focused, ophthalmology, dermatology, like very specific specialties they're focused on. They've created an agent for scheduling that is phenomenal. When you go and sit with the Assort team, as I have, they'll go through and they'll actually allow you to demo the product live. Most of the companies that they compete with play a pre-recorded demo. You're getting a live demo. That's critical because a live demo allows you to essentially see, does this work? Are there nuances? Once deployed for a primary care group in Maryland, they went from essentially, the numbers here, they went from a 4-minute wait time to instant answer, a missed call rate of 8% to 0. Staff capacity, they then had a 220% increase in the ability to redeploy staff that was previously handling scheduling. And their patient satisfaction around specifically the scheduling process went from 3.5 out of 5 to 4.3 out of 5. That's a key differentiator for how they attract new patients, for how patient satisfaction. So they were able to evaluate a tool, go through the process, see that this is a compliant tool. They have a ton of unique training data. They have really experienced, even with them being newer, really experienced forward deployed engineers. And then they helped us get it customized. And then once it's customized, in a very short amount of time, we were able to benchmark and see a drastic improvement in our ability to engage and schedule patients. And that's the kind of impact we're looking for. So it exists with all the hype, with all the noise. You can get benefit from your day-to-day knowledge work, from the strategic thinking, from benefiting with vendors, and then you can find and deploy these very specific tools that are compliant, effective, and easy to use, obviously with the right investment. So we're at time. I hope this was beneficial. The recording will go out. If you have any questions, I'll put up my, there's a QR code here. You can schedule with me directly. And I am happy to spend the time with you, talk about what you're seeing with AI, how you're feeling about it. And if you want to talk about specific vendor options, you can also email me. Walking through a vendor evaluation, all of that, happy to just to guide you or chat about it. I appreciate it, and thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jim, and thank you, Peak Technology Partners, for partnering with MSV. Please feel free to reach out to Jim or anyone at the Medical Society of Virginia. This will be posted on our website, and I appreciate you all joining. I hope everyone has a lovely day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.